Hello and welcome to warrenthornton.com. Hello and welcome to the show. Welcome to warrenthornton.com. Lambert is a little late in arriving, but I'm sure he will be here very shortly. But in the meantime, there are one or two things that we need to get through. We are going to be talking about some of them very, very shortly. And of course, many people will have seen, shall we say, the documentary that was sent out by Sky News over the last couple of days. And if you haven't seen it, it is a bit of an eye-opener. And when hopefully Lambert will be here shortly, and we will get to discuss with it. Literally, Sky have turned round and sort of praised or done all sorts of crazy things, praising the Azov battalion. And hopefully, with a bit of luck, as I say, we'll be able to show you exactly what is going on with that. And of course, we need to get into what this means for the rest of us, because this is a problem and it's one that the Russians want solving. So hopefully, with a bit of luck, we can go about solving that, or the Americans will set about solving that, because, as I say, Britain and everybody else is embracing this like there's no tomorrow. So let's get into it without delay, because I think this is something that we all need to see, all need to talk about, and we're going to do exactly that. Sky did this very simple thing inside a secret military base in eastern Ukraine. Now, this is done by Deborah Haynes, who is the Security and Defense Editor Secretary. Okay, so she's not just, shall we say, a pretty face. She is right up there when it comes to Sky reporting and everything else. So let's have a little look, first of all, what Deborah was reporting on, and do pay attention to her language.
We got you with Jollibee Pasko deals on Food Panda. Get 25% off family super meal A.
We're at the secret headquarters of the Azov Corps in the Donbass. It's buried deep underground. They've made this whole area. It took a couple of months. You can see there's wooden lining the walls and the floor. There's reinforced concrete above us. It's protection from the threat of drones and missiles. And clearly, having it underground means that soldiers can't be found. When they leave the base, they actually take off their uniforms and come in civilian clothes. I've been allowed to show you around on what's happening inside. This is the entrance area where they've got cameras to watch out for people that might be coming down and check that everything's secure. In here, this is the area where they're fighting the war. And of course, you've got the planning room. It's for future plans. Obviously, I'm not going to take you inside. But from this location, the Azov Corps, which is made up of 5 brigades, they're fighting Russian attempts to push deeper into the Donbass. This is the core area, the operations centre. We're not allowed to go in, but you can see soldiers inside looking at screens. They're watching footage from drones and other cameras, tracking movements on the ground and coordinating their operations to be able to counter the Russian attempts to advance. The unit here have managed to push back the Russians, but they were dealing with a storming attack only yesterday. Intelligence is key. Here, this is the information room. This room here is the intelligence centre. And then this room is perhaps the most intriguing. It says classified information. You have to knock on the door. If you're told you can enter, then you can go in. I'm not going to try. Around the corner, This place is like a warren. It's huge. There are hundreds of soldiers who live and work here. You've got like a makeshift library where they can obviously relax. There's also a chessboard if they want to play a bit of chess. This room is really important. It's about electronics warfare and air defences. We're allowed to look inside. Here the soldiers are tracking threats from drones, from potential missiles, air defences. Very, very key. Even though we're underground, there's clearly a concern. Here, we're not going to go in, but in that room there, that's where soldiers sleep. They work on shifts down here, and they literally spend their whole time underground. They sleep and work in the same area. Now, every soldier marches on his stomach. And here we have the canteen. You can see they're cooking up a stew. There's also a nice looking salad, and there's the laundry room is in there. In here we have the kitchen where you've got chefs hard at work. Well, they were hard at work earlier, cooking up the food for the soldiers. And around this corner, it is the area where they eat. We've been told we're not allowed to go in there because there are soldiers here who work in intelligence and they don't want their faces shown. Now, this area here, journalists aren't normally allowed to come down here. We've been allowed access because the unit is going to be moving to another secret location in the next few days.
So there we are. So that was their report that they put in. And of course, this was from Deborah Haynes. Do us a favour next time, Deborah, if you're going to broadcast, wear a bra, love. So very, very simply, let's get inside it then. They were invited inside, and it's a hidden underground military base in eastern Ukraine. So secret, soldiers change into civilian clothing whenever they step outside to avoid drawing attention. But the unit has been using this vast subterranean warren of war rooms, documentary, dormitory, kitchen, blah, blah, blah. Now, Lieutenant Colonel Arsen Dmitrik, call sign Lemko, is the Chief of Staff of the 1st Corps of Azov of the National Guard of Ukraine, one of the country's most effective combat forces. Very, very simply, he sat with us in the base next to a large square table covered by a map of the Donbass region. His soldiers have been fighting in this area since the summer, countering a surge in Russian attacks in and around the front line city of Pokrovsk. We aim to destroy as much as the enemy as possible. We will take losses. Yes, will it hurt? Absolutely. But he said if Russia are allowed to advance, even more Ukrainians, the Russians have advantage in numbers. They don't care how many people they lose. He then came out with a fantastic figure saying almost 17,000 soldiers have been killed or wounded in this section of the war zone alone between August and November, which is utter nonsense. A Ukraine video footage of the battlefield showed Russian armoured vehicles being taken out by drones and artillery fire. Of course it would be. It's Ukrainian video footage. At one point, Russian soldiers mounted on motorbikes trying to advance only to be stopped by Ukrainian fire. It is our task to hit them as hard as possible wherever we can. The Azov Corps soldiers are fighting over land that should be handed over to Russia, but according to an initial peace draft of a peace deal proposed between Kiev and Moscow, put forward by the United States. This despite swathes of the Donbass remaining under Ukrainian control. This is utter nonsense, and I'll tell you why this is utter nonsense. Because those areas of the Donbass under such and such control are complete and utter nonsense. They are not under their control at all. And as I say, it is quite incredible that these people would come out with this nonsense. Lembit has just arrived, so we're going to promote Lembit to the panelist that he always is, wonderfully so. And of course, it's lovely to have him on the show. He should be with us any second now, hopefully. We've just turned around and here we go. Let's just promote him to panelist. There we go. He should be joining any second now. So what we're going to do, and I do apologise for this, but we are literally going to go through this bit by bit. Lembit is here now. He should be with us any second. Now, as you would have seen there, good evening, Lembit. How the devil are we?
I'm not centred. But I will be in a moment.
So
good
what
to
we'll
see
do,
you.
while
There we are. Yeah,
Lembit,
I'm good. Good to see you. Thanks for having me here.
you're welcome. While Lembit's sorting himself out, we're going to go back to that video and we're going to play it for you one more time. Do have a listen. Do have a listen to exactly what is being said by her in this inside Ukraine's secret military bunker.
We're at the secret headquarters of the Azov Corps in the Donbass. It's buried deep underground. They've made this whole area. It took a couple of months. You can see there's wooden lining the walls and the floor. There's reinforced concrete above us. It's protection from the threat of drones and missiles. And clearly, having it underground means that soldiers can't be found. When they leave the base, they actually take off their uniforms and come in civilian clothes. I've been allowed to show you around on what's happening inside. This is the entrance area where they've got cameras to watch out for people that might be coming down and check that everything's secure. In here, this is the area where they're fighting the war. And of course, you've got the planning room. It's for future plans. Obviously, I'm not going to take you inside. But from this location, the Azov Corps, which is made up of 5 brigades, they're fighting Russian attempts to push deeper into the Donbass. This is the core area, the operations centre.
So there we are. So very, very simply, what we've got there is the Azov Brigade, and it is quite staggering. Let me just get my camera back on. It is quite staggering. What Sky have done is they've gone inside one of these centres, and there are, to my knowledge, there are 12 of these centres dotted around Ukraine. And that one, of course, is in the Donbass. They're claiming that they own large swathes of the Donbass, which is complete nonsense. Russia have 99% of Luhansk, and they have about 85% of Donetsk under their control. Now, very simply, it'd be a good idea if she wears a bra next time she does an interview live on TV. Very simply, she is talking there about 5 brigades, or 5, we should say 5 brigades of Azov battalion, which is, if they're at full strength, and we know that they are because they keep throwing other people onto the front line, we're talking about 25,000 men who belong to the Azov Brigade. Now, just before we bring Lembit in on this, we're going to go through a couple of things here, which I think are very, very noteworthy, Lembit, to do with the Azov Brigade. Because, of course, many, many people go, oh, who are Azov? What are they? What do they do? And everything else. Most people, and it's a pretty well kept secret, and I think it is a bad thing, is that these are the worst kind of people. These are the neo-Nazis that basically took over from the elected Ukrainian government in 2014. They have very much, at first, Zelensky tried to stop them, but they have very much overtaken, literally overtaken the whole of the military. Their ideology is being taught in schools and everything else. Let's have a little look. Here we go. Here's just one of, shall we say, here's various pictures this is off Facebook, from Ukrainian Facebook. This isn't made up or AI or anything else. This is Ukrainian Facebook pictures. Now, they are very much, shall we say, friends or good chums of Stefan Bandera, who was a Nazi collaborator many, many moons ago at the end of the war. And in the end, the Russians actually took him out. But these people have torchlight parades, die for Ukraine and all the rest of it. And before 2022, we couldn't stop these enough. Now, people will turn around and go, oh, it's not true. It's not true. It absolutely is. Have a little look at this. So this is the emblem of the Azov battalion. Then you have the Nazi black sun and the emblem of the SS division Dash Reich. Put those together, color it blue and yellow. And then, of course, you can see the word Azov at the top there. It can't be any clearer. And England or the UK have no problem with this and everything that goes on surrounding this. Even in certain stadiums, in various stadiums, when Ukraine have played England at football, you can see these paraphernalia all around the stadiums. They are not taken down. This is something that we support wholeheartedly. And then we have Sky News turning around and literally praising and bigging up these people. Lembit, what's your thoughts on this?
You've been consistent ever since I met you about the Azov Battalion, and you've said exactly what you said now, time and time again. I can answer I can answer your whole question in 30 seconds. It seems to me the Azov Battalion does not represent anything other than the Nazification of Ukraine, which is exactly one of the three conditions set by Vladimir Putin to denazify Ukraine. So the problem here is the Azov Battalion is fighting for Ukraine, and it seems to have this terrible ideological problem, as far as I'm concerned. What does that mean? Total inconsistency by the West. And that would perhaps explain. I think that most politicians in the West are too stupid to understand all this. But that's a very poignant picture because it's got that man there, the collaborator, on a stick. And so I think that most politicians in the West are too stupid to understand what you said. But it's unarguable. We're basically propping up something which the average British person wouldn't support in a month of Sundays.
Yeah, it is. And of course, we have to say that the whole thing sort of stinks, doesn't it? I mean, it's quite abhorrent, and they make no bones about hiding it. I mean, there are many, many units. And of course, we're talking at least now it's the indoctrination in schools and everything else. There's just one little troop of shall we say, Ukrainians. This guy Bandera and his whole faction were responsible in the war, and this is what Poland get very upset about, for the massacre of entire villages in places like Volyn, in Poland, Lembit. I mean, these people, their ideology, their shall we say, their way of life, and everything else is driven by this sort of stuff.
Yeah, I've never met them, so I can't say what they're like as individuals. Two observations, very specific. One is, assuming that picture hasn't been faked, it's got the Nazi symbol in it.
Yes.
That's quite audacious. 80 years after the fall of Nazism. Second point here, the West seems incapable of agreeing to an obvious condition, the denazification of Ukraine. Why? Why can't they say, well, it's not Nazified, so we agree? Or, yes, it is Nazified, and we agree we should stop it. There must be a reason.
There has to be, doesn't there? And the thing that really is troubling here, Poland, while supporting Ukraine, are still asking them to apologise for the war crimes they carried out in the name of the Nazis at the time, which seems absolutely incredible that you would have to do this.
You've got a schism developing in Polish politics, I think.
Yes.
You've had, in a very short version, you have a very bad politician, I think, there. Comes from the same broken mold as von der Leyen and all them, with a very dodgy background. And then you've got a progressive person who doesn't hate Russia. And I actually think this is beginning to pull back a curtain, revealing a very, very, very dark secret society across Europe, which would rather support Nazis than do business with Russia.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And while we're on the subject, I'm going to show you a picture here. And then I'm going to explain why I'm showing you this picture, because many people still don't realize, and they should do, that this woman here, Kaya Kallis, has been known to be praising Azov, along with a senator in America, Adam Kinzinger. They have both, shall we say, not only turned around and said that it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Now, they do it secretly. They do it through an organization called NAFO, which is called the North Atlantic Fellow Organization. Now, this is an online presence that tries to stop, and very successfully, tries to stop anybody highlighting the fact that this is going on. And Kaya Kallis and, shall we say, Mr. Kinzinger have both praised the NAFO, who actually fundraise for the Azov Battalion, which are the neo-Nazis. Lembit, the fact that we've got European politicians and American senators doing this is slightly troubling, isn't it?
Yeah, to some extent, some of them could be naive, what they call useful idiots. Others may know what's going on. Back to my previous point, though, Warren, it's a simple one. They don't care. They don't care. They're more interested in overextending Russia, a point you made some months ago, than worrying about the niceties of whether they're using Nazis or neo-Nazis to achieve that goal.
It
It
does.
seems to me that this is one of those times where the utter cynicism of Western foreign policy is laid bare. But I have to tell you, the likes of David Lammy, Yvette Cooper, Keir Starmer, they wouldn't even understand this. It's too far above their intellectual capabilities, so that they just don't understand it. But other people do. I bet you George Soros does.
Yes, yeah, there's no doubt that George Soros will understand it 100%. It is staggering, though, isn't it? And of course, as I say, we'll get a little bit more into this because, of course, what we've got here is ever since, and you've seen the video on here, where literally Zelensky went to them and told them stop killing people in the Donbass back in 2017, 2018, because it was attracting too much attention. And they basically turned around and said, "You're not our president. We didn't vote for you." And of course, this very much they just went on with the killing them bit. It almost seems, and we know that Sersky and of course Zaluzhny are both, shall we say, acolytes of this ideology, and it's not going to stop unless they completely clear out the whole of this sort of Ukrainian government, because it is infected from the very top to the very bottom, where they're teaching this sort of thing in schools, and we have sort of neo-Nazi brown shirt camps inside the UK. We've got 10 of them, which are basically called youth camps. But they're all wearing uniforms which look exactly like the brown shirts, Lembit.
Yeah, this is the thing. There's so many. There are so many um bits of circumstantial evidence. If you actually look up, I have looked up the Azov Battalion really because of you. You go to Wikipedia. Wikipedia's like a drunk friend in a pub. What it says is probably true, but you do need to check it just in case. And then it mentions the allegedly continuing association with neo-Nazi groups. More interesting, Al Jazeera. I have a huge respect for Al Jazeera. I think they're a very good station, even though they compete with, or we compete with them, and unprecedented. They asked a question, it was a few years ago now, about I found the old article, it was 3 years ago, who are Ukraine's far-right Azov regiment? And then yet The Guardian, which is just morally bankrupt in my view now, Azov fighters are Ukraine's greatest weapon. I mean, it's just ridiculous. You can choose the narrative you want to believe in the media. I come to the view, though, that the far right nature of the Azov Battalion is pretty much backed up by the visual and documentary evidence that you yourself have broadcast.
Yeah, very much so. And this gentleman here is a French mercenary soldier. His name is Benjamin Dehy. He is now dead. He's a French merc. And as you can see, his paraphernalia that he's got there. I mean, this is French mercenary soldier with his neo-Nazi symbols on. And of course, you may remember this picture. We showed it a while back. He's now been eliminated because the Russians do like to find these people. This is him standing there with the flag of Ukraine, of course, and of course that nice little symbol, neo-Nazi symbol in the middle. And of course they don't even try to hide it. But before 2022, Lembit, the whole of the West was absolutely alarmed by this movement.
They may have been then because it was unnecessary for them to start lying to themselves and everyone else. Then, when Russia had enough of NATO expansionism, suddenly they go, "Oh, yeah, we need them because my enemy's enemy is my friend." That's more or less what they're saying here. But let me quote you something from that article which I read from long ago. I'll just shortcut. In its heyday as an autonomous militia, the Azov Battalion was associated with white supremacists and neo-Nazi ideology and insignia. It was especially active in and around Mariupol. In 2014 and 2015, we're not talking about the 1950s. It's 2014 and 2015, a decade ago. CNN teams in the area at the time reported Azov's embrace of neo-Nazi emblems and paraphernalia. CNN, who have some merit at times, mainstream, they have some merits at times. They just openly report it. It's like not difficult to find these strong associations. And don't tell me what was true in 2015 has been completely dissolved in 2025. It hasn't. Why would it be?
Yeah, absolutely right. There is something that we need to talk about now, because we're going to have a look, first of all, at Ursula von der Leyen. Then I'm going to read you what I wrote at the weekend, Lambert, and see what your thoughts are on this. Let's have a listen to Ursula von der Leyen getting into.
Do we have to?
She's not going to be talking for very long. This lady, the French MEP, is going to be talking.
Madam von der Leyen, we no longer expect anything from you, and yet you still manage to disappoint us. After the energy crisis and the renewable fiasco, we were expecting you to question your policies. But you go even further. After the explosion in the cost of your grand loan, we were hoping you would come to your senses. But just now, you are proposing an absurd budget with 2,000 billion in spending. After your lectures on the rule of law, we expected you to hand over your text messages with Pfizer, as the courts have ordered you to do. But the rule of law is not for you, it's only for others. After Donald Trump was elected, we expected that your anti-Trump stance would, for once, lead you to defend our interests. But you gave in without a fight, and now you sign the Mercosur agreement while over-regulating our own activities. Madam von der Leyen, looking at you, I don't even know if you understand what I'm saying to you right now. You will never change. An ideologue will always remain an ideologue. A technocrat will always remain a technocrat. The only thing the peoples of Europe expect from you now is your resignation.
She found some rounds of applause there, Lembit.
Yeah, who is she exactly?
She is, I'm not quite sure of her name. She is a French MEP who stood up and basically gave it to von der Leyen over the Pfizer contracts, which, of course, she refused to release any of the text messages and said that they were too boring, and then suddenly found out, oh, I deleted them after all.
Oh, well, no, they can't. You can get them back, though. They are recoverable. And so, therefore, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, not good.
What's this?
But that's von der Leyen and the lady who is being investigated for corruption. Her name is Mogherini, and of course she and Kaja Kallas's office is being investigated by the Belgians. Now, it's very, very strange that suddenly the Belgians have sent the police round to raid all those offices, Lembit. And I'm going to give an idea of what my thoughts are on this. So I'm going to read out what I wrote at the weekend, and hopefully you can give us your thoughts on this if you think it is completely wrong. Now, the article was Euroclear and the European Union. A special court can be set up internationally if Euroclear have to give the frozen Russian assets to press charges against anyone stealing money in the European Union, and its powers are internationally binding. Kaja Kallas' statement that no one in Europe will find against us is not only beyond madness, but factually incorrect. Again and again, the European Union has been warned by everyone, Euroclear, the World Bank, America, and countless countries outside of Europe, and even some countries inside of Europe. There is no question that the frozen Russian assets have already been used, and it's not been the interest that they have been dipping into, but the principle. We have told you over and over again that corruption and the very existence of the European Union is under threat, as they've already been dipping into those assets outside of Euroclear. That much is confirmed. We know this for two reasons. Number one is very easy to quantify, as anyone thinking that billions given to Ukraine came out of the interest is seriously deluding. It's a blatant lie. The interest from the assets held is 1.5 billion a year. Let me say that again, 1.5 billion a year. You do not need to be an accountant to know that the so-called money given to Ukraine to keep Ukraine afloat vastly outweighs that amount, and the funds held in frozen assets in other countries have been used, and now they're trying to legalize blatant theft to cover up what has already been a blatant theft. Now, this brings us sharply to point number 2, where the exact amount we are being told is available keeps fluctuating, which tells you that each country is letting each other know that they keep going to the well for a few hundred million here, a few hundred million there. Well, the well is now dry, and the mass panic among the coalition of the willing for those who have gone along with this criminal enterprise. Why are they not listening? Because the process has already started, and they need the funds in Euroclear to bail not only themselves out, but to prop up this losing war. Paying it back to the Russians is never going to happen. They will try and hide this common thievery behind Russia should pay reparations, which is about as boneheaded an idea as starting the war in the first place. Euroclear and Belgium are quite rightly utterly against this. Do remember they asked for guarantees from the coalition of the willing to pay all the money back when Russia come calling for their money. The European Union refused. Why did they refuse? Quite straightforward, really. They know full well they don't have the funds to do so. The idea that von der Luded or Kaya Crazy are going to get other countries to pay if the Russian assets are not stolen is ludicrous as well, because if they had the money to actually pay for the war themselves, they would have given Euroclear the guarantees that they want for paying that money back. Now, they were furious, absolutely furious, the European Union, that America gets some of the money in the peace plan, having already agreed to buy gas and weapons at vastly inflated prices from America, and rightly so. The people who started the war by overthrowing the elected government of Ukraine are waiting to be paid for wrecking the economies of Europe, which was a bit of a bitter pill too hard for them to even swallow. Let's be frank here. The Belgians have instructed the police to raid corrupt officials' offices in the EU building. God knows where do you start with that one, which is clearly Belgium reacting very badly to being thrown under the bus by the rest of Europe. A clear sign to back off pressuring us from committing financial suicide. For if Euroclear do this, they are finished internationally, and by proxy, Belgium will become an economic cautionary tale. If this happens, the coalition of the clueless will take cover faster than a Patriot battery operator. Belgium were absolutely right to refuse to steal Russian assets, as they know, and they pointed out that Ukraine are beaten and the Russians will be at their door asking for the money. As for the European Union, they will be calling for reparations to try and hide the fact that this bunch of outrageous crooks have been found out. Of course, mainstream media will blame Belgium or Trump or Russia, maybe China, anyone in fact, but the very people responsible for this outrageously idiotic idea that stealing from someone who can pull down the very bricks of your asylum is not based in common sense, but comes from the mindset of madness. The rabid dog that is the European Union needs to be put down and dismantled entirely, not just to give everyone their sovereignty back, but to put a large dent in the globalists. Lembit.
Well, it's very comprehensive what you said. Let me keep my comments brief. First of all, it is theft. And what goes around comes around, because we're not going to be at war with Russia forever. And Russia won't forget this. Secondly, von der Leyen's a very dark character. And I think that she's just riding on the crest of a wave of apparent justification for very bad things that she's done. But we can't get beyond it because she's using the bureaucracy to protect herself. But it looks terrible. The associations she's had with COVID and the vested interest and all that, it's really looked very, very bad. And it doesn't surprise me that Belgium's not happy. Third, the final point is Belgium's right. Why would theft be justified by a conflict? It's just, by any objective, logical assessment, Europe's completely out of order here. I actually think it's so bad that this could actually spell the destruction of Europe's project in a way, because other countries like Italy and Greece will say, we're out.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Mark Honza.
Yeah, I've got to agree with what Lembit's just said. These countries need to regain their sovereignty and end this European Union money circus.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. It's a good call, because let's face it, what is going to happen to them is pretty awful. And of course, we have von der Leyen coming out with that. And the very first thing that needs to happen is they need to try and get the lid back on the bottle when it comes to, shall we say, all the problems that they have. For instance, we're going to give you, this is, shall we say, something that didn't go too well at all. We've got lots and lots of Ukrainians that are, shall we say, in trouble. But there are one or two beautiful things that happen, Lembit. In Odessa, the TCC tried to take people away. The Ukrainians were having none of it.
Достали народ.
Oh,
So
there we are.
What was that? Who was in the vehicle?
That was a man. They were TCC officers, so they are basically Azov Brigade trying to grab these guys and throw them, shall we say, onto the front line.
Well, the car was pretty messed up. I take it they were just fighting back now.
Yeah, it is quite staggering, isn't it? The amount of times that we're seeing this over and over again. And I think then we have to have more and more of this, don't we?
We need to. We need to publicize it, because it goes completely against everything that the useful idiots in the mainstream media and the useful idiots in the British government are saying. People don't understand this. Donald Trump does. His people do. They've cited it. They've said about it in public. Everywhere you look at the Azov battalion, you think it's terrible. Terrible. They're just animals, barbaric animals.
It is quite staggering, isn't it? They do come every now and again. You know what they say about not having to go looking for something, Lembit. Life gives you pleasure. Here is TCC gone wrong. Now, we've played this before, but somebody asked for this to be repeated. This is a guy about to be thrown into the, shall we say, and drafted onto the front line, Lembit. But a man's best friend is his dog. Have a little look at this.
Пиздец.
And of course, once he's down, the owner goes to work. It is great to see them fighting back. Lembit, your thoughts?
Were they trying to conscript the man?
They were, yes, and it went horribly wrong because his pit bull decided he didn't want his owner to go.
That is so good. I have to say, that's Schadenfreude at its best. Just hearing the man screaming, I don't know, does that make me a bad person?
Nope.
Serves them right. Well, what's good about it, the more this is reported, the more people are standing up to this barbaric, corrupt, broken regime of Zelensky's, which is riddled with corruption. Can't win the war anyway, but looks like it's very good at siphoning away Western money. Well, what you saw there was just desserts.
Yes, absolutely. And I would imagine after that, not just siphoning the money, but he might need the golden toilet after that. Sean Murphy.
Yeah.
I can only assume, Warren. I can only I can only assume that all that screaming wasn't actually coming from the victim himself, but was coming from the TCC, who were getting well chewed by the dog.
They were, and of course, we have to turn around and say it couldn't happen to nicer people. If you're
well done, the dog.
Yeah, if you're literally grabbing people to be thrown on the front line to die, I've no sympathy for whatever happens to you, because what you're doing is quite disgraceful. We've got a little bit of this as well, because Lembit, they've blown up a tanker or two since you and I have spoken last, which is quite crazy. We're going to have a little look now at, of course, what Douglas McGregor has got to say about this, because I'm one of those people who believes, and Douglas McGregor has agreed with me as well. About a week later, Douglas McGregor has put this out, that just basically says that the Russians now will take Odessa, because you can't have a seaport to basically blow up our oil tankers. Let's have a look. It's about 10 minutes long, but it is well worth having a look.
What would Russia's retaliation do to Ukraine and the global economy?
Well, you see, you're smarter than most of the people in the White House because you're asking the right question. If this is done, what's the backblast, if you will? What are the consequences? First, the effect on the Ukrainian or the Russian economy will be modest. It's not hard to attack unarmed freighters, oil tankers. That's very easy. But doing that then provides President Putin with the justification to take Odessa. Right now, the Russian forces are very close to Zaporizhzhia. The bridge across the Dnieper River is intact. Moving across the bridge at Zaporizhzhia and then moving south to take Odessa is easy. There isn't much left of Odessa. In fact, in the last few days, there were major Russian strikes on targets in Odessa, including a target of a building where Ukrainian pilots were living. And actually, some French officers that were billeted with the Ukrainian pilots were also killed. They also struck the airport and destroyed Ukrainian and some French aircraft. So the Russians know where everything is. The Russians have plenty of special forces and agents on the ground. Seizing Odessa is easy. And by doing what you just suggested is essentially a gift to the Russians, because historically Odessa is Russian. If you go back to 2014 and the coup that we backed in Kiev, there were some very terrible and ugly things that happened in Odessa, one of which was numbers of Russian citizens were burned alive in buildings set afire by Ukrainian nationalists. And the Russians would like nothing better than to get back into Odessa and eliminate that Ukrainian nationalist gang. They say they actually know the names of everyone involved in that terrible act. So I think your last question, what's the effect? The effect is that Odessa falls rapidly into Russian hands. That means that whatever happens after this war ends, whatever sort of agreement is reached, Odessa is Russian and Ukraine is landlocked.
But you think that's an unlikely outcome moving forward? Because the negotiations right now are talking about freezing the lines in Kherson and Zaporizhia, and then
who's
giving up the Donbass.
Who talks about freezing the lines? The Russians? No. We talk about it. That's what we say. The Russians have never agreed to freeze lines anywhere. What they've done is they've stipulated preconditions for agreement. Those preconditions have nothing to do with the current lines. You have to look at the map and see what they are demanding. We have never been able to convince anybody to accept those demands. So the notion of freezing lines, I think, is an illusion. What's happening right now with Mr. Witkoff and Mr. Kushner, both of whom have no credentials as representatives of the United States government or the president, are in Moscow to try and create an optical illusion. What Trump wants is good optics. He wants something that he can point to as a consequence of his great leadership as a peacemaker. Now, the Russians don't have any problem with doing that, provided their conditions are met, and that's the rub. You can't get the Ukrainians or the Europeans right now to agree to those conditions. So that's why I think Odessa is a done deal now. You sank those tankers, at least one of them I know was sunk in the Black Sea. You've threatened others, fine. We will take Odessa. Once the Russians hold Odessa, you will never get it back. It will remain Russian. I also predict they will move north and seize Kharkov. Well, Kharkov and Odessa are historically Russian cities. They have nothing to do with Ukraine. And all of this nonsense about, well, it's within the current construct of the Ukrainian map is irrelevant. Odessa was founded by Russians, built by Russians, conquered by Russians under Catherine the Great. Kharkov is another Russian city. The real Ukraine is further north. Everybody knows that. Ukraine was never that far south. So the bottom line is, it doesn't make any difference what people say in the West. Once the Russians hold it, they've got it, and I think that's what's going to happen.
So one of the provisions in the plan is that Russia will not prevent Ukraine from using the Dnieper River for commercial activities. And agreements will be reached on the free transport of grain across the Black Sea. Now, that was before the strikes on the fleet. So you're saying that provision will change if Ukraine will continue striking the Shadow Fleet?
Well, I'm not saying it won't change. What I'm saying is that the real key for the Russians is control of Odessa. Now, if Ukraine wants to conduct commercial business on the upper river, wants to conduct commercial business inside the port of Odessa under Russian control and supervision, I'm sure that would be acceptable. But the Russians are not going to allow the Ukrainians to bring in vast quantities of armaments and equipment into Odessa that will be used to kill Russians. That's not going to happen.
Another development that we saw today is NATO's threat, or you can call it a threat, by the chair of the military committee, essentially saying NATO now reserves the right to act preemptively. So NATO's always been reactive throughout this war, to responding to various attacks. You could call them attacks, the hybrid warfare by Russia, and that's the arson that we've seen allegedly by Russia. Some are people disputing this. The undersea cables being severed, the GPS jamming, the drones, the derailment of the train in Poland. What do you think that means? So is that could NATO start to respond differently if Russia continues that hybrid warfare, if I can call it that, against NATO?
You and I discussed this alleged hybrid warfare the last time, and I dismissed it as nonsense. It's still nonsense.
Yeah.
The globalist leadership in Western Europe is desperate to induce fear in its own population of this hostile, aggressive Russia that does not exist. That's the biggest issue. Right now, our friend Merz in Berlin, Macron in Paris, and Starmer in London are all on thin ice. They are doomed to inevitable failure and removal. The German population right now is coming to terms with reality. Look at the alternative plan presented by the AfD. And the AfD, which is growing in strength every day, wants a restoration of good relations with Russia for the purpose of restoring commercial interaction with Russia, i.e., buying energy from Russia, which no one in Germany ever wanted to stop. So these people are finished.
There we are. So, of course, they're saying that they're finished. And, of course, many people would go along with it. So far, in this war, just on fuel and oil, should we say, on exports alone, it has cost the Europeans $1.6 trillion in lost revenue. Lembit.
I wonder if that takes into account the stupendous cost of energy, which we buy from America, that's laughing all the way to the bank.
Yes.
Because they're dealing with complete rank amateurs in the United Kingdom and Europe. The more I see of McGregor, the more impressed I am.
Yes.
Because he's cogent, he's lucid, and he's correct. The problem we've now got is we've got absolute incompetence, self-serving incompetence like von der Leyen, Starmer, Macron, Mercedes-Benz in Germany. Kalakaya, so sad to see her in a position of authority. It's awful. That woman in the Netherlands, I think, who said that peace was more dangerous than war. No, when you watch all this, Zelensky, the bit part player, professional comedian, who thinks he can learn politics in a quarter of the time I've been in it. He can't. So you're watching these complete plonkers. Is that a hard word? No, I mean it, actually. The complete klutzes playing at war games while people in Ukraine are waiting for the money bags to come in so that they can siphon it off. I don't think anyone seriously thinks that Ukraine can win, do they? Not in Ukraine, they won't. So it's just a laundering scheme of some sort. However that is, we know there's corruption in Ukraine. I don't think there's any danger of being taken off air for saying that. But what worries me is these people, and Mark Rutte, such a weird, odd little man. These people who says that lethal force is the safest thing to do, that fundamentally all imply that you can beat Russia. Russia's not even really stretching itself. And the last greatest irony of all, Warren, and here's where I would say I told you so. All of this isolation of Russia ignores the fact that Putin's going all over the world making friends with little countries like China and India, who's just agreed with Putin essentially to buy a limitless amount of cheap oil. And it's just, the more you think about it, you just think, how on earth did we get here with these total fools selling away their own credibility?
Yeah, I think you're right. And of course, we've still got Ukrainians coming out with this sort of nonsense. Have a look at this.
My organization documented 165 re-education camps where Ukrainian children are militarized and Russified. These camps exist in occupied territories, in Russia, in Belarus, and in North Korea. In this photo, you can see 12-year-old Misha from the occupied Donetsk region. And in this one, 16-year-old Lisa from occupied Simferopol. They were sent to the Sondovon camp in the North Korea, 9,000 kilometers from home.
So let's tidy that up, Lembit. First of all, basically in their desperation, Ukraine need atrocity propaganda. So they found two kids they try and claim are kidnapped by Russia. My organization documented. No, you downloaded the photos from the internet. She talks about Yelitseva, 16-year-old.
That's harsh. Can you prove that?
Yes, we can. Was born in Simferopol. She was born in Crimea. So you can't claim she was kidnapped. It's just idiotic. When? In 2014, Crimea went to Russia then. Number two, Mihailo, 12, born in Makivka. He was born in the DNR in 2013. That's a suburb of Donetsk. Ukraine bombed this kid's school when he was only 2 years of age. They bombed his kindergarten. He grew up under Ukrainian bombs. Now, this Ukrainian lawyer, Katerina Rashivka, not only is a liar, but she's a malicious one. They need more money so they can bomb these places even more and bomb the parents. So let's have a little chat about this horrible camp that they've been sent to in North Korea, because it really is, honestly, Lembit, it is quite the disgraceful place. Let's have a look. So the park is part of that North Korean development. And there's something else that we need to talk about here. So this is the Songdown camp, Lembit, where children who are orphans are given a place where they can go to a holiday for 2 weeks and basically go and join with other children from around the world. This is based in North Korea, by the way. And of course, they are indoctrinated into having a good time on slides, on water slides. And of course, these are people who are from war-torn countries to give them a bit of a break from what they saw. Now, this is not only orphans from Russia, but Vietnam, Korea, all sorts of places go there. It's basically a camp for children who can just go there, dress up in their natural, whatever they want to dress up in. They can go and just be children and go and play. Lembit, this Songdoon area, of course, looks like it's absolutely terrible for children. Of course, here we are. This is it. Forcibly placed, human rights organisations say. This was just announced at a Senate Appropriations Committee hearing. It's nothing of the sort. And of course, this is much more. This is more Ukrainian propaganda. Ukrainian children abducted by Russia.
Yeah, I've heard this a lot. This is actually taken as fact in the mainstream media. I've struggled with this actually because they sound terribly plausible when they're saying that all these children have been stolen by Russia. You say a totally different thing. Now, I watched a film called The Boy in the Striped Pajamas again recently. It's a very good film, and it touches on Nazi propaganda in World War II and the suggestion that the concentration camps were actually fun camps. So I'm quite jaded by all of this. I have to say, I'd like to go to North Korea for my holidays if it's true, because it looks really nice. But
it's absolutely beautiful. Yeah.
But the question is, the questions I'd like definitive answers to, and there are questions I don't have the answers to. What's the truth about these children being abducted? Secondly, what's the truth about indoctrination? And thirdly, that woman that you showed us, what's the independent evidence of what she says is true? You're saying she's just telling lies.
Yes, absolutely, she is. And of course, many people would turn around and go, "It can't be true, can it?" There are 9,000 children that are missing in the Donbass, and we've shown, of course, anybody who's a fan of the program has seen time and time again where we've shown these videos of the children and their efforts by the parents to get them back. And they're talking about, they turned around and said 20,000 children have been kidnapped by Russia. Then they presented a list of 339. And then, of course, they found out that 174 of those have been sent abroad by Ukraine. They were literally sent abroad by the Ukrainians, and they are in places like Germany. And we've also shown, if you watched the program the other day, where literally a Ukrainian charity run by Zelensky's wife was sending children to Turkey, and of course to these hotels in Turkey where they were being abused. And of course, 2 of them fell pregnant and came back. And the Ukrainians are even investigating that themselves. NABU are now investigating it, obviously, to put pressure on Zelensky and others. But this is finally coming to light. It's quite incredible, Lembit. They're talking about maybe about 140 children who Russia have said, we do have, and as soon as you can produce the parents, we'll return the children. But we're talking about thousands more that have been sent across to all parts of Europe, and nobody seems to know where they are, Lembit.
Yeah, the difficulty that Ukraine now has for those of us who pay attention can simply be summarized. You're a broken state. You're a corrupt regime. You abuse people in the street and force them to their quite possible deaths on the front line that can't be sustained. And Volodymyr Zelensky's number 2 and business party are on former business partner on the run from fraud charges.
Yeah,
it's not a good look. And so when you got all that going on, it's very hard to believe anything that we're told. And then there are all the private gossip stories swelling about Zelensky. They are just gossip, but circumstantially, you add it all together and you think this man has got a lot of problems. Putin's been rather more direct about his accusations than I'm going to be on your show. But you put it all together and you think, why would I believe what they're saying about children?
Yeah, absolutely right. Now we're going to get into, in a minute, we are going to go for a quick 1-minute break. Then we're going to start showing you some videos that you need to see. But before we get that far, This is Heliopol. This is now where in the green is where the Russians are moving in. This is the latest city to come under, shall we say, a Russian full-scale effort to try and capture it. And of course, if they capture that, then of course, once again, I'm sure the Ukrainians will turn around and say it's of no strategic significance whatsoever. But a Norwegian journalist is in trouble. His name is Paul Stegen. He has turned around and shown, very simply, very close figures to ours, Lembit, about the amount of soldiers on the Ukrainian side who have deserted. He is saying, not including this year's figures, in 2022, 2023 and 2024, 182,000 soldiers fled the Ukrainian armed forces.
Well, there's probably more than that, really.
Yes.
Why would you stay on the front line when you're going to lose the war, and on top of that, you could lose your life? Why die pointlessly? I've been having an argument with somebody on X, on the social network X today, who basically implied that Ukraine could win. I think this is ridiculous. It's a ridiculous thing to say. It's preposterous. And so all we're doing is determining the rate at which people die and the rate at which Ukraine loses ground. Ukraine's going to lose all the ground anyway. They can either lose the lives in the ground, or they can just lose the ground. But of course, if there's a massive corruption racket going on, the lives aren't important, and the money that they can extort and defraud the West from, well, the longer the war goes on, the more they can get.
Yeah. Now, somebody from Statista has been having a look, because we hear, don't we, about Russia's invasion of Ukraine, how terrible it is, and none bang on about it more than us in Britain, Lembit. And of course, here is a list which we have read out on numerous occasions: Andorra, Belarus, Bolivia, Burundi, Central African Republic, Chad, Congo, Guatemala, Ivory Coast, Kyrgyzstan, Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, Mali, Marshall Islands, Monaco, Mongolia, Paraguay, Sao Tome and Principe, Sweden, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan and Vatican City. They are the only places in the world, Lembit, that Great Britain have never invaded.
So have they invaded Nauru? Yeah, I think they have.
They
probably.
did, yes, I'm afraid so.
Mauritius,
yes,
France, Belgium. Well, there you go.
And all that.
For the purposes of this conversation, I'm Estonian.
Yes, yeah, and
actually, England, the British actually were very helpful in the Estonian War of Independence in around 1919. They actually lost over 100 servicemen, thanks to a very, very lovely man called Lord Carlisle. He actually got a plaque in a cathedral, I think in Portsmouth. I could be wrong now. I went to it. I think it's Portsmouth. But they've done good as well. But a lot of people got a lot of axes to grind. I think Britain, on balance, has done more good than harm in the world. But you need to do that with a bit of humility. If you're going to damn Russia.
Before we get into some of the videos we can't show on normal social media, let's have this little break and we'll be back with some of those videos.